Hi, this is Good Wine Gal Barb Wild, and I'm here today with Lyndsay O'Rourke, and we are talking about Tightrope Winery. We're talking about Lyndsay, we're talking about women in wine, and we're talking about sustainability in the Okanagan Valley, but specifically Naramata Bench. So Lyndsay and I met several years ago, and Lyndsay, how about if we start with where is Tightrope Winery? And what do people need to know about Naramata Bench visiting you and your success?
Sure, yeah. So we're on the Naramata Bench on the east side of Okanagan Lake. The winery itself is probably halfway between the city of Penticton and the village of Naramata. We're on the lake side of the road. We have been making wine under the Tightrope label since 2012. So we just finished our, I guess, 12th vintage, or 12th vintage coming up this year.
Amazing.
Yeah, so yeah, we're a small family-run winery. I'm the owner and winemaker. My husband is the grape grower, also an owner, obviously. And yeah, we're just small winery under, about 5,000 cases max at the moment. And we focus on wines that we think do well on the Naramata Bench. So all of our grapes come from the bench, and we focus on varietals that show really well here. And yeah, so we don't get grapes from outside this region. So yeah.
Well, it speaks to your training, cool climate winemaking. Welcome to Canada, welcome to the 50th parallel. I think it's an important part of, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Understanding what can grow. So do you want to speak a little bit about, the varieties that you've got at Tightrope and sort of, I mean, I met you at Legacy Liquor Store back in the day. It was Sauvignon Blanc Semillon, as I recall, being kind of the bottle that I just couldn't stop recommending to everyone that came in the store, because really seriously a great example of a Bordeaux Blanc, but coming out of Canada and unexpected and super well balanced, lots of flavors and sort of profile that we don't get really inexpensive Bordeaux Blanc here, and why not? So
yeah.
aromatic, pretty. So so that's a Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon. Are they growing on your property?
They're growing. So they're not, we have 3 vineyards now. So the original Fleet Road Vineyard is where the winery is and where we live. And where the Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon comes is the Thomas Vineyard. That used to belong to my sister. We bought it from her, I think in 2020 or 2019. And it's been growing grapes, I think, since about the same time as the vineyard here. So 2007, 2008, that area. So they're a little bit older.
And is that above your property or?
It's a similar elevation. It's on Corbishley Avenue, if you know where the Munson Mountain is, the Penticton sign. So just north, on the north side of Munson Mountain is where.
I've been climbing up Munson Mountain almost every day, just with this glorious sunshine going, oh my God, and doing like the happy dance on the top.
Yeah, yeah. It's so nice here right now. Yeah, for sure.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we have 2 vineyards over there. We've got the Thomas Vineyard, and then we have one called the Marmot Vineyard, which is almost like across the road from there. So yeah.
And white grapes planted there as well, or?
It's a mix on both properties. The Thomas Vineyard is where we get most of our Cabernet Franc from. And we also have some Syrah and Viognier over there, besides the Sauv Blanc and Semillon. But those are the biggest blocks, is the Sauv Blanc with the Semillon. So.
And so the variety, like if we talk about age of vineyard, like Naramata Bench is sort of a premier wine destination. Vines were planted, I don't know, 50 years ago at Lang Vineyard.
Yeah, Lang and Hillside. I know Hillsides were in the 80s, I believe. So maybe not quite 50 years, but yeah, Lang for sure. And I know
so when you
Nicholas
got
been
your
around a long time.
when you purchased your property, were the vines to be planted, already planted? What was the strategy with?
When we moved here, we had just finished school in New Zealand. So I went to the Cool Climate Viticulture and Enology School at Lincoln University. to learn how to grow grapes and make wine. And when we came back to the Okanagan, we kind of had our sights set on the Naramata area because it's kind of a Goldilocks area where you can grow lots of different varieties. You can do, you know, the cool climate varieties, but then you can also do some of the bigger reds like Syrah and Cab Franc. And so yeah, when we were looking for properties for sale, we found the property here on Fleet Road. It was actually an apple orchard at the time, so we had to convert it over to grapes. We'd sort of planted it 2007 and 2008, so the vines are, yeah, getting up there now, 17 years, I guess, along those lines.
That's a big conversation because planting vines, then you have to wait, don't you? For crop
Yeah,
to
so when
do
we first
something.
planted the vineyard, Graham actually worked for Mission Hill as a viticulturist. So he worked for them for about 6 seasons actually. And then I was sort of helping put the vineyard in and manage a bit. And then I worked at different wineries in the area. And the plan was always to build our own winery and do our own label. It just kind of took a little bit longer. So it wasn't until 2012 that we actually made our own wine under the Tightrope label. So.
What was the first what were the first styles that you made? I mean, kind of, there's been a progression, hasn't there?
Yeah, so originally we only did 4 wines. We did Riesling, Pinot Gris, Rosé, and Pinot Noir. And we have Merlot here as well and Barbera, and we sold those. The rosé we weren't even going to make, but it was a year where there was an early frost, and the lower end of the Pinot Noir vineyard kind of got hit with frost. They weren't quite ripe enough for a red wine, but it was ripe enough for a nice rosé. So that's how the rosé came about.
Interesting. And
Yeah.
now we've got how many?
Oh,
8,
geez.
10?
Yeah, at least, yeah, maybe a dozen SKUs actually. We always say we're going to cut down on the SKUs, but then we seem to find a following for all the different wines we make. So then it's kind of, you feel like you should make it. So
This is like a classic itch, I think, that it just
Mhm.
never seems to go in that direction. I was talking
Yeah,
with a winery and they've got like 29 and they're like, yeah, we've always said we're going to reduce, but we just keep adding. So,
we just don't know which ones to take out, but
well, if it's about, so you have some estate fruit, but then you're also getting fruit from contracts. Is that right?
Yeah, so last year we grew about almost 75% of our grapes, and then
Right.
25% we got from growers here on the bench. And that's mostly Pinot Gris, Syrah, and a little bit of Pinot Noir. Otherwise, we grow everything else ourselves. So
And the Syrah, I mean, we can talk about, you've won a lot of awards, so I want to be clear. And you've also been honored with, top 10 small winery in Canada. Is it Canada,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
A couple times, right? Right?
Yeah, no, I think we were, well, maybe just once the top 10, but yeah, we sort of make it in the top 15 most years for sure. Yeah.
And then your wines get, I mean, you've got medals hanging. I can see them on the shelf.
Yeah, it's big. Yeah.
We got
We, yeah, from the very beginning when we started making wine and we entered a few competitions, we started getting recognition. So that's a nice feeling, you're on the right track, and you know that, wine tasters out there are going to like your wine. So that, yeah.
So do you attribute that to Lincoln College? Do you feel like New Zealand really showed you something? And I mean, I don't know, what did you do before? Were you a chef or
Um, no, well, I bartended a fair amount, but no, Graham and I met in Whistler, and we were both just kind of doing the ski bum lifestyle back then. And then after my first son was born, I realized I needed sort of a real job. So, living in Whistler, you kind of, it's a small town with a lot of fine dining restaurants, and you
Yeah,
sort of get into the food and wine culture. A lot of the restaurants like a Rimrock or the Barefoot would have shoulder
100%.
season tasting things, get a 5-course meal for $30 and go and taste some, great wine, great
Amazing.
food. And that's sort of where you learn that connection. And then looking into the whole winemaking thing, with a lot of the science, chemistry, plant science, biology, and I had already done all that at university. And so it was very in my wheelhouse. I found that super interesting, and I really enjoyed that side. So it was just kind of a natural progression to go into the winemaking. So
So were you a science major?
Yeah, I was in agriculture. So I had an animal science major with a wildlife management major or minor. So I did a lot of agriculture courses and a lot of forestry courses. But yeah,
Wow. And where was home originally?
I grew up in Vancouver on the North Shore. So yeah,
And
I went to,
Is Graham a BC boy too?
no, he's from Ontario. He grew up in
Oh,
Ontario and yeah, part of the East infection, he calls it. But yeah, yeah.
well, you had to show him, you had to show him the pathway to something beautiful and something.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm
Well,
not
I
saying
think he found it in Whistler already, but yeah. But
that must
he
have been hard to leave.
yeah, it was. I think I was ready anyway. I was ready for a change. He always says that he could go back and live there one day maybe, but I don't know. But like funnily enough, when we came to the Okanagan, it was all for me to go back to school to learn how to, make wine and things. But he actually ended up taking viticulture courses and just falling right into it too. And he kind of found his niche as well. He
Yeah.
really
Well,
started to
it's a
enjoy the
great
farming side.
pairing. It's a great
Mhm.
pairing. It's, like, how does that work in a relationship? Is that symbiotic?
Yeah, I think we both realize where our wheelhouse is. And of course he'll try to get me to pick at the beginning of September so he can go hunting. But you just kind of have to push back on that and be like, yeah, no, the grapes aren't ready yet, that kind of thing. But yeah, he's a great grape grower and he knows the style of wines that we're looking to make. So he grows the grapes to match that style. And yeah, it just seems to work.
So speaking of style of wines,
Hmm.
hmm,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't
very
know. I'm a Riesling gal, so it's like it's ridiculous. I have many bottles, but then this, I
yeah.
went to the Insights conference and they were pouring this.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah.
And so that was awesome because I'm not sure how long have you been doing Pinot Noir? I was like, oh, I'm trying that.
Oh, since the very beginning. So we've
Yeah.
been since 2012. Yeah, we have back vintages to 2012. So yeah, that was definitely a New Zealand kind of thing, I think. The
The
Pinot
Pinot
Noir.
Noir.
Well, it's also the very fruit forward, very aromatic whites are also I really enjoy those. Yeah, the
Oh,
nice acidity, but lovely
well,
aromatics as well.
the trend, I mean, we all try to say, oh, what's going to happen in 2024? But, globally, I think there's a movement away from, the big reds of the 80s and 90s
Hmm.
or maybe even the 2000s. And certainly in my own consumption, I just see whites and rosés being opened for more often and
Yeah.
lighter reds.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So, do you want to talk about, should we talk about
Sure, yeah. So this is our I already have some in my glass. I have to ask because
she's ahead of me. It's
I'm super excited about this wine. I don't know if you've had a chance to try it yet, but
no, I
um
saved it. I saved it for our
you
conversation. I have the wrong glass. I've got one of those big, whatever, but I don't care.
I'll forgive you. That's all right.
Thank you. And
Yeah, so this comes from our Fleet Road vineyard where the winery is,
yeah,
100%, and it's very simply made. It's stainless steel fermented. It's a long, cool fermentation to preserve the aromatics. But 2023 was, as you know, was a really warm year. So it got quite ripe. I mean, not bricks wise, it's not overly alcoholic, but it's got a lot of those lovely um, floral aromatics in there, but also a lot of the green apple, but also some of the stone fruit as well. So, I might get some apricot and peach in there as well. And it's just
I
really
feel
in your
like
face. I'm quite excited.
it's got a nice intensity of aromas and
Mm,
I
yeah.
also would say there's an undercurrent of like what I think is like going and licking a little bit of rock
Yeah,
or
and that's very much a characteristic of the Naramata Bench, especially on the below the road vineyards where the soil is quite a bit heavier. It's got that silty soil. I mean, you usually get a lovely minerality from those sites.
whoa, whoa,
Mhm.
whoa, whoa.
Mm.
Food wine,
Mm.
super, super dry, super
Mm.
racy. I love that. Oh, and lemon lime, like finish.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
Um,
So yeah, it's quite dry. Quite. I think there's only a couple grams of RS maybe. And the TA is, what is the TA? It's about 8.5, so 8.6.
TA for anyone not
Yeah,
understanding
sorry.
what TA is.
Titratable acidity, so sort of a measure of the acidity of the wine. So this
Yeah.
wine's going to age really nicely. It's got all the
It's
factors.
exactly where I went. Like, you know what? This one here, you buy, you lay down. Maybe you buy 10 bottles and you lay it down and you kind of open one every year. I mean, I don't have the
Yeah,
patience for that.
yeah, yeah. No, for sure.
What else did I notice? So 100% Riesling, 376 cases, super dry. So I love that on the label on the back that you
Mhm.
let people know where it is on the scale. Like that is from someone who worked in retail, you can't know every bottle. I mean, I would know
No,
yours because the wines were so good and I was the BC wine buyer, but
right,
I wasn't always on the floor.
right,
And
and
so
it,
you really
yeah,
need everybody.
and it, yeah, you don't. Yeah, it's difficult because the idea that Rieslings are sweet puts a lot of people off. So,
Totally,
and that a
totally.
lot of,
But
especially a lot of BC Rieslings are not sweet. A lot of them are fairly
no.
dry. So, yeah.
It's a misunderstanding, I think. I
Mm.
think there's somehow this overarching experience of like the 60s and 70s that the only Riesling had to be sweet. And so it's such a legacy idea, but 12.9% alcohol.
Yeah,
So that would be my clue that this was dry.
dry. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so 2023, did we have a warm summer, fall?
Well, so I feel like, um, well, being in this almost 20 years now, the vintages start to go together.
You're
But
like, wait.
I feel like we had a bit of a cool spring, but then a really warm rest of the summer. Is that right? Yeah, I think
We
so.
had 2022 was January. June
Right.
was
Yeah,
rain,
because it was, that's why
and
yeah.
then last year I feel like it was more balanced. It was anyway.
Yeah, I feel like I remember, no, it must have been a pretty warm year because we started harvesting really early. We started I think the first or last week in August or the first week in September. I think September 1st might have been our first
I was in Vancouver in
harvest day.
August and I just remember every day was 38 degrees, some
Yeah, so you're
crazy
right. I
number.
think
And I
the
was
whole
like,
year was quite warm. God, my memory is getting terrible.
okay, let's
Yeah,
not.
but anyway, yeah, because I remember the harvest went really fast, and it was one of those harvests where um, it was a lot of warm days back to back, and you're just picking nonstop because everything was ripening really quickly.
Right
But
at once, hey? So a bit
yeah,
compressed.
yeah,
How
very.
do you like are you out there tasting or is Graham the one tasting? What's the process around decision making for harvest?
Yeah, no, so that's my decision. So I will go out each block and I will pick berries to test, and then I'm always tasting just to see where we're at. Are the flavors there? Is the consistency there? Is it, yeah, is it quite, yeah. So
So
yeah,
a
that's,
steady diet of grapes in
yeah,
August and September, hey?
yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
It's like we should have a diet like the Great Cleanse or something because
Hmm.
I'm sure there's a process that would be fun for everyone to learn. It's just like, what are we looking for?
Hmm.
And how does that show up here? But 20 years of
Yeah.
experience, I mean, you can't replace that. You can't, I think that's the beauty of what you do. And I would ask you, do you think women have do you think women are better tasters?
Oh, I don't want to start a controversy here. But if you ask me, I would say that of all my favorite wines in the Okanagan, it's almost likely it's a woman winemaker that's making them. So,
Right. Well, this
mm.
is how I kind of got onto this idea that I just want to chat with women. I mean, there's this experience I had in Italy where, the women were like, oh my God, there's only 2% of us are making wine. And it was a conference and it was put together all by women.
Oh
And
wow.
so it was really interesting that they were feeling, they need to do more, there can be more. And then someone brought up that in Canada, there's just this great opportunity with so many women. And I like New World is really open-minded.
Yeah,
And
I
I feel
think 'cause
like,
we don't have the traditions of those old world countries, right? Where it's the men in the cellar, the men in the vineyard, where, you know, I can see how it'd be slower to change. And here there was no real precedent, right? So there's nothing to say that, you know, women
yeah.
can't
And you and your
get
husband can
jobs.
buy a piece of land and you can plant if you want. And you don't have a consortio saying you can only plant this grape variety,
Right. Yeah.
whatever.
That is
So,
the fun part of the Okanagan. I see there's lots of room for experimentation for sure. Yeah.
so yeah, I have this, I was talking with Alison Moyes and she said her research paper out of Brock was exactly on the sensitivity between men and women tasting, and that women showed far more sensitivities, which
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
that's what I said, because there's scientific data. But I mean, we have a
Right.
hunch. We have a
Yeah.
hunch, but it's nice when another woman can bring a document and say, oh no,
Yeah.
here it is.
Verify it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but speaking of making wine, like you've got a winery on the property, you're making it there.
Yep.
How many days or how many weeks are you involved in sort of that part of the work? Or is it 24/7,
Uh,
365?
yeah, well, because we own the business, there's always something to do. Obviously, winemaking is much busier, like just say during harvest, through the winter months, and then till bottling in the spring. And then we won't bottle again till the fall. So it's definitely quieter on the winemaking front through the spring and summer. But you know, that's not my only job here. You know, we got the wine shop is open. Graham's got the vineyard going. That's when he gets busy. So yeah, there's always something to do. And so this becomes our high season for sales as well. So you're making lots of sales calls, going to different events, that kind of stuff. So we're just as busy, just doing different things, but
Right.
depending on the time of the year.
How
Mm.
much of the sales is actually coming out of the wine shop? Is
Uh,
that
It's quite big for us, yeah. Between wine shop and wine club, we probably sell 50 to 60% of our wine out the
that's
door.
awesome. Are you guys open now?
We are, yeah. So we're open all winter, just Monday to Friday, for a few hours if you wanted to come by for a tasting, just because there's someone here and we're happy to, you know,
Right.
get tasting or sell wine. But we're in the real sort of wine shop tasting season now. Especially starting Easter, we'll be open 7 days a week and longer hours, probably noon till 5 o'clock.
And how does your tasting, you have a couple options? Do you do like a sit down premium tasting and then a standing at the bar tasting, or what's the,
Yeah, we have sort of our you know, sort of standard portfolio tasting. It's 5 wines, it's $10. And then we also have a sort of a premium tasting experience that's $35, and you'll actually do a bit of a tour of the vineyard and the winery itself, and you know, you get a nice glass to take away with you, and you get more of an in-depth look on how the winery works, and you know, where the grapes come from and all that kind of stuff. So
I would think people would find that super interesting and would be willing to pay for it.
yeah, most people do. Yeah, they walk away. Yeah, it's always nicer getting those more details and the closer idea of what you do here. So yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
think that came out of did that come out of COVID, or was that
I think yeah. Well, part of it was COVID in that way everything had to be appointments. So we had to, you know, do appointment tastings and that kind of stuff. And then I think and then consumers as well were just kind of asking for something a little bit more as well. So, you know,
yeah,
yeah, try to make it a more of an experience rather than a just come in and taste.
right. Come in, hold your glass at the bar, wave your
Right.
glass because nothing in it,
Yeah. Yeah.
sip and or drink and go. Do you think the drink and go or days are over? Do you think people are a little more
I think
wine
so.
savvy?
I think there'll kind of always be some of those people, but yeah, I would say a lot of consumers that come in here now are way more educated or experienced in wine tasting, and they
Yeah.
know the area well. They've been to a lot of wineries. They've tasted quite a bit of wine, and they're, you know, they're genuinely interested in knowing about the story and how the wine is made and stuff like that. But then you do get those people that are, you know, looking for something to do on a nice sunny day and just want to, you know, come and experience the different spots. And you know what, both are good. You know,
Yeah, yeah. Do you have a picnic area there? So if people
we
said,
do,
oh,
yeah. We have a picnic area just in the front of the winery here, yeah. So you can bring
awesome.
a bottle of
So you
wine or a
can,
glass of wine.
so here's this lovely Pinot Noir, 100% estate fruit,
Hmm.
250 cases.
Yeah, I haven't had this one in a while. I'm excited.
Wow, it has less alcohol than the Riesling.
Interesting. Yeah, look at that.
Who knew?
Yeah.
It's not a strategy, it's science. We actually have to do tests and we actually have to record the numbers, right?
Yeah, I think
Wow.
it's interesting. I wonder, yeah, so 22, like you said, was a bit of a cooler year. So
So January and then that beautiful long September.
Yeah, it was very worrisome actually coming into harvest time because things were definitely behind. And then we got that beautiful 6 to 8 weeks in the fall that sort of
Save the day.
made the season. Yeah, without that we wouldn't have had such a lovely wine. But it was a good Pinot season actually because the Pinot loves the little bit cooler weather. So
Right.
yeah, that's why the alcohol is lower. These are also open top ferments, so we lose some alcohol during ferment as well. But
I actually think just good winemaking, we're not really looking at alcohol, but there's a balance here when it's in that zone. And I just think that just speaks to, you know, the overall strategy around making wines and the touch and the sort of finesse that you bring.
thank you. Yeah, so this one, yeah, it
Chilies.
comes all from our Fleet Road vineyard, which is where the winery is. And it's a wild ferment. It's all small lots. We use like 1 ton fermenters. Everything's hand plunged, very gently treated. I won't see a pump until we go to press. And then it's aged in 100% French oak. Most of it's neutral, probably maybe 30% new French oak. So
I like the texture. I like the precise, you know, cherry aromas. There's spice, a nice sort of barky, oak spicy component to this. But I really like the texture. It's not always, you know, some of them can be more silky. But I think this one will stand up to both Bourguignon very well, or steak or whatever. Like it's got
and
nice acidity, great balance.
and it's still quite young. So even in another 6 months, I think it will be that sort of hopefully get more of that silky texture in there as well. It's an interesting so well the grapes here, it's a variety of clones and rootstocks and everything's picked together and fermented together. There's no fermenting them separately and blending them back later. And
Right.
the site just lends to the sort of the darker fruits, well, darker sort of Pinot fruits.
Beautiful though.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Whereas we have another vineyard site just a little bit north, the Rubis Pinot Noir. It's another single vineyard Pinot, and it's made in exactly the same wild ferment, small lots, same oak program, but the flavors are much more on the red fruit. So it'll have the cherry sort of, you know, more red cherry, sort of raspberry, strawberry flavors, whereas this one
Right.
those darker flavors, and it's just site difference and maybe a little bit of colonal difference, but yeah, it's amazing to see how different they can be from one site to the next. So,
Is it a particular clone on this one?
and on the Fleet Road.
Yeah.
No, so it's a mix. We've got 115, 777, 667, and then a few other odds and pieces mixed in. We needed to replant, if a vine died here and there, we just put in different things. So it's honestly a bit of
Yeah. It's
it's
good.
a big mix of stuff, but I think it
Yeah.
works well. I think it
Yeah. Would you say that Naramata Bench is suited to Pinot Noir?
I think you need the right site, but yeah, it can be for
So your
sure.
site, do you think the terroir, like, I mean, you would have to tell me, did you dig a pit and there's like, oh, we've got limestone, or I don't know.
We did it more on, so our property is somewhat undulating. So we have where this plot is planted, it's actually kind of north facing, and then it goes down to a lower spot. So it's actually one of the coolest blocks
Oh,
in the vineyard. You know, if you walk from the top where the winery is down to the gate, you can actually feel a difference in temperature just walking down. So yeah, the
I
Pinot
love
seems
that.
to like that. And being north facing, it doesn't get quite as much as the, you know, if it was west facing, say, and getting a lot of that
Right,
long heat during the day. So
right.
yeah, so that's why we picked that spot more. The soils are somewhat consistent across the vineyard, although there's some areas that are a little bit have a bit of sand in them, but it's mostly that the silt that the you see on the
Seabed,
bench makes the
lake
benches.
bed, right?
That's right. Yeah.
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 Ancient granite rock foundation.
Yeah, we don't get anywhere near that here, but
Okay.
across the road, see,
So
they're
when you
very
see
different
those,
across the roads. Yeah.
when you see the bluffs across the way,
Mm,
that's it. That's it in
right.
its entirety.
Yeah.
And that is like compressed soil from being a bed of a lake, an
Hmm.
ancient lake forever.
Yeah, and that's why the road, Naramata Road basically runs on the division between the lake bed and the above the lake, the shore, I guess. And vineyards on either side of the road make quite different wines actually because of that. The soils are very different.
How
So,
cool.
hmm.
I love that. So, when we think about you were in New Zealand and
Hmm.
the trucks bring in the grapes and pour them into the vats. I mean, I don't know, where were you? And you were at college studying, and so you must have seen everything.
Yeah, we did a part of the program is you do a big tour of the North Island, and then you're always doing field trips to like Marlborough or what have you. And so we got to see a bunch of different things. And then I had to do a practicum as well. So I did a practicum at a winery called Moreworth that was just outside Christchurch, which is no longer in production anymore. So you won't find Moreworth wines anywhere, but um so yeah, you see Moreworth was probably a small winery, a bit like ours, but then we did get to go to Villa Maria where they have, you know, they got the massive tipping tanks that they use for Sauvignon Blanc and things like that. So you get to see it on a whole different scale. So it's yeah, it's quite interesting.
And do you think that had a sort of this lasting impression when you came here in terms of sort of understanding the potential of the valley here and kind of where we could go, or were you?
I think it definitely has influenced my style, even now. Although I've come to the longer I spend here, the more the differences become prevalent between New Zealand and here. They call it a cool climate school, but they don't actually get anywhere near as cold as we get here. I think the coldest temperature in Christchurch on record was -7 or something like that. Um,
Crazy though, right? Because
right,
we get
yeah,
what, minus, well, what we get
yeah,
minus
yeah, minus.
28 or whatever.
Right, yeah. And then also, especially down south, it's actually the growing season itself is actually more of a warm climate, right? More, I wouldn't necessarily say hot, but definitely more of a warm climate. So, um, yeah, so those are the differences I've sort of come to realize where we do have a lot of the cool climate characteristics, but then we can also have some really hot summers and some really hot areas. So that, yeah, it's a little bit different and you have to change your growing techniques to deal with those differences as well. So
Someone said to me, "Oh, Naramata Bench is going to be fine. The body of water mitigates, these cold temperatures." What are you seeing in your vineyard for?
so yeah, so that's interesting. The cold snap we had in 21, 22, that last winter, we fared very well. We had very little damage. We actually had a pretty good crop, and I do think that a lot had to do with the lake effect. The cold snap we had here in January was quite different. We got quite cold. We got down to -28, I think, in one of our vineyards. And I think part of the issue is that the wind that blew in, it was very windy, very, we had the northern outflow, very windy. I don't even think the lake had a chance to mitigate some of those temperatures, to
Anything.
be honest. Yeah. So unfortunately the lake effect, yeah, didn't help us at that time. So yeah, so it looks like we're not going to get a huge crop this year, but we're being optimistic, fingers crossed that the vines will make it through. And if they do,
Nature can surprise us, I think. I hope.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah. But the news is we're bottling the 2023 vintages.
yeah,
Wine shops are open. We have wine to sell.
yeah,
You will find wine in the retail stores. There's still an opportunity to become a wine club member.
of course,
Like,
yeah.
so how does your wine club work?
Our wine club is, we have 2 shipments a year. We have a spring shipment that comes out just, a few weeks after we bottle. So everyone gets first crack at the new vintages. And then we also do one in the fall as well. We do a fall bottling. So we get some of those wines in there. We have 3 different packages you can choose. We have a white wine club and a red wine club, and then a winemaker selection, which is a mix of the two. And then it depends if you come to, it's 10% off for wine club members, plus you get, first crack at any sort of events that we do, or any of the wines that come out. And yeah, just, perks like that. We free tastings as well for wine club members and guests that they bring. So
Do you have
yeah.
any events coming up? Like, do you do anything in Vancouver, or you mostly do things here in Penticton, or what are we?
We don't have any winery ones planned specifically yet, but the Naramata Bench Winery Association is having a spring release party May 3rd, I believe it is, at VCC, I think, downtown. So that'll be exciting. We haven't done that for a few years, so yeah, it'd be good if everyone
Yay!
came out to try that. That'll be fun. Get all the wineries back together again and get a chance to taste all the new wines. So
Is that because of COVID? That was a sort of a
yeah,
reason we
yeah,
haven't, yeah.
yeah. That shut that
That's,
down, and then it became difficult to find venues to do it as well. But we have a bit of a
and
partnership
what
with
is
them.
VCC? You said VCC,
Vancouver Community College, but it's the culinary school
and that's here or in Vancouver?
in Vancouver. Yeah, I think it's the
Okay.
downtown
Oh my,
campus, I believe.
yeah, yeah. Yes, I know. I was like, I didn't put it in Vancouver, so oh no, that'll be awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
Huge venue, and they've done a great job with the new bakery. Anyway, it's
yeah. I
quite a
haven't been in there, so yeah,
development
I'm excited to see. Yeah, that'll be good.
there.
And yeah, so
Awesome.
there's a few different tasting events going on that we'll be at as well. So
Do you want
yeah,
to talk about sustainability? What some of the
yeah.
things that you guys are working on? Because I think that's really, we're all talking about climate change, and there's a lot of concerns
Mhm.
about how we manage nature.
Right. Yeah. So there's a new program out. Well, it's a few years old now. It's the Sustainable Wine Growing British Columbia. And
Yeah.
Graham actually sat on the board um, for over 10 years. He's still on the board. And so he helped develop the regulations for this wine growing program. And now it is a certification program where either as a vineyard you can become certified, or as a winery you can become certified as well. And all it is like a best guide practices of sustainable practices, which it includes, growing your grapes to running your winery to running your wine shop. It's about economic sustainability as much as environmental sustainability, and also, being a good neighbor in your community, and because a lot of these businesses are have neighbors and are immersed in areas that you need to be good neighbors. But so it can run. There's sort of a minimum standard you have to make to get certified, and it could be far as what's your water management, what's your cover crop management, how do different growing things. But the nice part about the program is that it is all about improvement over time. So you get audited every 3 years, and you have to show that you're trying to be more sustainable. So for instance, in the winery, we're measuring water use and trying to figure out where we can use less water, or we're switching to lighter weight bottles coming up soon. So, there's less of a
Wow.
CO2 footprint that way. Graham bought, a special undervine mower so that he doesn't have to spray herbicide as much, and it just things like that, you know. I mean, it's those small things that can sort of make a big difference. So
Well, once you start measuring, it was always this, I did a course in sustainability management like a decade ago at least now. Once you start measuring, it was proven, once you start measuring, then you know you can do something. But if you
right,
never measure,
yeah,
what can you report? And so I think it's fantastic because obviously there's a list and obviously there are step changes and obviously it's going to be a process that takes time. So it's not
yeah.
like, oh, now we're sustainable. It's like, well, we're working towards it and it's going to probably be an ongoing, you know, what do you call that? Like, you know, the gate kind of moves a little bit each time because every year nature presents
Mm. And
some
there's
new,
always something that you can do to be, you know,
right.
a little
So
bit better,
are
you
you
know.
thinking about so or anything like
We
that?
have we have solar panels already. We've had I think it's been 6 or 7 years. We got solar panels on the winery and up at our house, so we can we cover at
Wow.
least 50% of the winery's power through there. And sort of
Wow.
even in the summer, we kind of run a credit, which is kind of nice, you know. So
Awesome.
yeah, yeah, and it's just sort of, you know, upgrading your mowers, your sprayers, your irrigation, all that kind of stuff too. So
How do you reduce water use?
I think, well, we have soil moisture probes in the soil, so Graham can actually have a look and see where the soil is at. So maybe, you know, your first couple centimeters might be dry, but you actually have quite a bit of water down below, so maybe you don't need to water, that kind
Right.
of thing. He'll also go out and look at the vines to see, you know, are they stressed? He can tell by looking, you know, what do the leaves feel like? Are they, you know, getting stressed? Sometimes tendrils will start breaking off if they're a bit stressed, that kind of thing. And he also goes out as far as, you know, disease pressure. He'll go out and look for stuff before he'll, you know, try to treat it rather than just being on some sort of calendar program of going
Right.
out and doing stuff. He'll,
Right.
you know, he waits for the disease pressure to get to a certain point and then deal with it rather than, yeah, just going out and because
Do you
it's
feel like
Monday,
there's
because
one,
it's the second Monday, so I gotta, you know, I gotta go spray that kind of thing. So.
do you feel like there's something that you've done recently that's going to be really a game changer?
God, what have we done lately? I don't
Or even maybe not lately, but something that you did along the way that you're just like, no, this was just the best thing we ever did.
oh God.
Like I think your plantings around Pinot Noir was pretty brilliant, actually.
Yeah,
Uh,
so our whole vineyard is sort of planted that way. We coming up, we may have to think about replanting some plots and probably over at the Thomas Vineyard. Just with the, you know, with varieties that are more resistant to the cold. So we have some Syrah, which, and I love Naramata Syrah. Like I think it's a beautiful wine, but they're not the most winter hardy plants,
no.
Syrah. So we may have to think about changing those over. But maybe that's a chance to, you know, plant something exciting that we haven't done here before. So we'll have to, yeah, put some time into that.
Speaking of Syrah, you want to
Mhm.
talk about, we had a master of wine visit the Okanagan Valley. Was that last July?
Yeah, well, she's been here the last 2 summers now, and she's
Okay.
brought in by the Naramata Bench Winery Association, and they run a bit of a tasting thing called the Best of the Bench, and all the wineries in the association will submit some wines, and she'll taste through them all, and score them, and she'll pick her top 12 wines, and those become the Best of the Bench, and that's a package you can actually buy. The Naramata General Store is selling them, the Best of the Bench packs, and it's the 12 top wines that Siobhan Turner chose, well, last year and the year before. But yeah, so this year, actually, and the year previous, the Syrah came out at on the top, 96 points. So
Amazing. And
yeah,
I just want to point out it was a woman tasting.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. And
So
the Cab Franc
interesting.
came in. I think the Cab Franc came in at 95 points. So
So
both of
how many wines do you have in the 12 pack?
two this year, and we had actually two the previous year too. So
Okay. And what were the two last year? Cab Franc and Syrah both years?
yeah, last year and then the year before that, I believe, was Syrah and the Fleet Road Pinot Noir. So
Wow. And the Syrah, the label on the Syrah, is it Fleet Road as well?
No, so the Syrah, that's a blend of so the Thomas Vineyard, we have a bit of young Syrah over there. We planted that, I think, 3 or 4 years ago now. And then we also have a grower on Upper Bench Road. Sort of, if you know where Upper Bench Winery is, there's those kind of gnarly looking vineyards up and behind. And one of those is where we get our Syrah from. So it's a gnarly looking vineyard, but it grows really, really nice
I
Syrah.
drove around that area Sunday and I was like, what is going on here? Because, you
Yeah.
know,
Hmm.
how old are these? But they're like, "Nyeh." So
Yeah. It's very steep, so it makes it a little difficult to manage with it's steep driving in the tractor, and then it's
yeah,
very sort of light soil, so they don't keep a lot of water, I don't think. But so you get some sort of gnarly looking vines, but really nice fruit.
gnarly, gnarly. Well, this is a lovely Pinot Noir, so thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm
Mm.
excited about this one, actually. It's been
I feel like it's just going to get better and better. I like all of the parts of it. It's delicious. So what would you sell this bottle for?
I believe it's selling for about 38 in the wine
And the
shop.
Riesling?
The Riesling is around, oh God, 26, I think. Maybe. I'm terrible. I should grab up. Anyway, it's around
Don't
there.
tell, don't tell Graham, don't tell Colin.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of women in wine, and
Mhm.
this is just part of the effort to kind of be a voice for women who want to come into the industry. Maybe they want to become a winemaker. I just am curious, you've had and it's a big question, so you just take your time and answer it in parts or whatever you feel like addressing. But there's, education is a pathway, a science degree is awesome, but what do you do? So what would you recommend if someone came to you and said, "Oh, I want to be in wine." Um,
It depends if they want to be a wine. If you want to be a winemaker, I would definitely go and get a proper formal sort of science background education because um you I mean, there is a science and then obviously there's an art to winemaking, but
of
if you
course.
don't understand the science, you're not going to get yourself out of trouble when you get into it, right? You need to understand what's going on with the wine. Um, and then as you get experience, that's kind of where the art comes in, where what can you tweak, what can you change, what kind of style do you want to make, and what do I have to do to make that kind of style? That's where the art comes in, and that comes with experience, I think. So yeah, I would get some form of formal education and then do whatever you can to get practical hands-on experience because that's where you'll learn the art of it, I think. So
Do you do any teaching at Okanagan College, or are you involved in anything? You're involved in a couple of boards, I think, aren't you?
yeah, I'm on the BC Wine Grape Council. I'm just a new board member there, so I'm just sort of getting my feet wet there, learning how that all works and what I can do to help out. As far as education goes, the college has their wine cellar assistant program, I think it's called, and the students have to do a practicum, like a 50-hour practicum. So I've taken on students quite a few times. My cellar assistant that I have now, actually, she was in the program and she just kind of never left. She did her
I love
practicum
it.
hours and then stayed. So yeah.
You find your people. I think that's
Mhm.
part of it too, right? And
Yeah.
not to be saying that this is not a career for men and women. It's just I sometimes wonder when we look around, there's a lot of men who are legacy people in the industry, and we know that things eventually are going to change in that people retire, and
Yeah.
then who's coming up? And I don't know. The statistic I've heard is like 25% of the winemakers in the Okanagan Valley are women, which is
I would have
awesome
thought it
when you
might be
think,
actually be a little bit more, but maybe not. I don't know.
well, now I have to do a tally. It's like,
Just thinking of the bench alone here. There's yeah,
right,
there's a
right.
lot.
Do
But
women in wine get together in the Okanagan?
yeah, we had a tasting group for a short while there. Erin Corpisto, when she was at Stag's Hollow, organized that. And so we had people from, yeah, South Okanagan, sort of all the way up to Naramata. I guess we could get, 12 or 15 women together and do a tasting. So those are kind of fun.
It's no small task when you think of how long the valley is and how much time people have to spend in cars.
I know, right? Yeah, yeah.
It's
Usually,
crazy.
yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, often you might only do it up north or down south or what have you, but
Yeah.
that's a ways to go.
Uh, anything I haven't touched on that you would like to chat about?
I'm just trying to think. We covered sustainability, which is important. Yeah, the new vintages that are coming out. I just want people to know that we have wine, so come and visit us. The weather is beautiful. It's fantastic. I know there's been a lot of bad news in the news lately, but you know what? The Okanagan's here. We're here to stay. We have wine to sell right now. So yeah, please come and visit us. And honestly, it's just stunningly beautiful right now. So it makes me,
I think you've summed it up. Human nature is we like negative. But here we are. I decided to come up in March because I just was like, on the off chance that the weather's going to warm up sooner, I'm like, I'm here and everybody should be here. So what's that saying? I'm beautiful, wish you were here or something like that. Or you're
I don't know. I'm not sure with that one.
you're beautiful, wish you were here. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's lovely chatting with you.
You too.
Really, I feel like we've known each other a long time and we just still know each other. So I really appreciate that. And just best of the season.
Thank you.
There's a lot going on. So, if there's anything I need to know, you call me and say, oh, you can put this out on the
Oh yeah, for sure.
because
Yeah, we'll do
I
that.
do a newsletter every month, and so I'm happy to share. And one of the things that's going to come up is I'm doing some stories about the wineries are open. Come on up, book now, plan now,
Yeah.
and plan sooner than later. Don't wait until, August. Come
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, and if, like honestly, the shoulder seasons are probably the best time to come. The weather is the nicest. It's it's not quite as hectic as the summertime, and
Yeah,
yeah, it's a great time to
yeah.
come and visit. And yeah, but yeah, thank you for all your support and having us on here, and yeah, I
Total pleasure. Total
greatly
pleasure.
appreciate it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
So enjoy. Best of the season. I'm sure I'll see you. I'll stop in.
yeah,
Thank you
please.
for the lovely, thank you for the like double fisted, double
I know,
bottles.
right?
Like I'm having a party here tonight. Woohoo.
Cheers. I'm
And
excited for my work day to end so I can go enjoy
so
some wine.
cheers to you. And
Yeah,
thank you for
well,
inspiring me and inspiring women in wine. It's really great.
thanks so
I'm
much.
going to I'm going to stop the recording now. Don't go anywhere.
All right.